Welcome back again. Welcome. Still Fathers of Nations by Paul B Vitta. We've looked a couple of stylistic devices or the use of language, in other words, and at this particular point, we're going to look at others devices as far as language use is concerned, and how these particular devices or styles have been used by Paul B. Vitta, and what implications, what do they imply, which effect have they brought out in the novel. Now, in case you're coming across this particular content, this work, it's your first time, you bumped across it accidentally, a good friend of yours referred you to this channel. How about these? That next, in the near future, you don't want again to bump across it. You don't want to keep on being referred to by good friends. Give it a thumbs up, subscription, and of course, a sharing, a sharing that is, and of course, a sweet, soothing comment down at the comment section. By subscribing means that you'll be immediately be notified of our future updates instantly when we do that. Without that much further ado, hoping that all those three would be considered, will be taken care of. Let me also take care of some issues here. Let's look onto our first device, story within a story. You must have heard of that. It's not the first time. So, story within a story is a style that has been used in this particular novel, Fathers of Nations. So, let's get into it. Fathers of the Nation. Now, this is where a character within the story becomes the narrator of a second story. Oh, up there, that particular title is not supposed to be Fathers of Nations, it's supposed to be a story within a story. Correct that, good learners. It's not supposed to be the title Fathers of Nations, but it's supposed to be a story within a story. And then a divination below it, that those couple of lines, that this is where a character within a story becomes the narrator of a second story. Hope you got that. The narrator in the story becomes, the character in the story, within the story, becomes a narrator and becomes telling us the story. We get it in almost a different viewpoint or a different perspective. It is mainly used to reveal the truth in the inner workings of the story. The story of donors gauging up on Africa told by Professor Kimani to his only daughter Tuni is a good example. That is found on page 22. Another example is the story of Dr. Afolabi and his wife arriving home to find that Femi had brought a second wife to Afolabi so that he could have children of his own, since Pamela did not want to have children with him. That story is told by Afolabi. Afolabi is a character, but then we see him narrating a story. So it qualifies to be a story within. So there is also a short story told by Comrade Melusi to Longway about the Gakurahundi who led the laws of his wife Ziliza, and that is found on page 91. Comrade Melusi tells a story to the visitor Tad Longway about how he fought side by side rather with his leader to defeat Smith and attain independence in Zimbabwe, found on page 87. The story of Saif Tahir on how he fell in love with Rahma. Remember Rahma? Good. How he experienced rejection and how that brought about vengeance, but therefore leading him to losing an eye, which is told through this particular style, and that is found on page 119. Done with that, done and dusted, onto our second or other different style that is evidently used or incorporated by Paul B Vitta in the text is irony. Of course, we're not going to dive into it in details. We've got situational irony, verbal irony, and also sarcastic irony. No, not really sarcastic. So we've got those particular types of ironies that we're going to list. Why am I not getting all those particular examples right now? Maybe in another sessions when we have everything in place, then we shall have all of them. So, but irony is the opposite of the expected maybe occurrence or events or expectations. It is a stylistic device in the novel Fathers of the Nation. Now, this is a state of affairs that appears deliberately contrary to what one expects. It is used by the author to cause a character to act out of ignorance of some truth of which the audience are aware of. It is ironical for Asiya to compare her husband, who has worked hard all his life, to people like newborn, and that is page 2. We don't expect that. It is ironical also for the MPs like newborn, who have little education, to earn better salaries compared to professors like Kimani, who has never studied abroad in order to, or who has even studied abroad rather, in order to live, not that live, to live, like living, not leave, going, parting ways, no, to live. That spelling, good learners, make some good changes there. To live, Live, a better life. It is also ironical for newborn to propose marriage to Asiya while she is still married to Professor Kimani, and also since he had already has 3 wives. Further, Asiya is even way older than him, and that is found on page 33. There is irony. There is irony in the fact that Professor Kimani is handed a 6 months jail term, yet he is one who has lost everything. It is also ironical for the presidents to tell the police not to take bribes, yet they, the presidents, take even bigger amounts. Irony is played out in the fact that Dr. Folabi thinks that if saved to communicate through the phones he has given the 4 strangers at the same Mount Hotel than to use the hotel phone, yet the silent listener is able to hack their conversations. Page 55. Sorry. It is also ironical for the pastor to read political documents in the pulpit to his congregation, something that is not really expected. It is ironical for Tahir to take Rahma to court for losing his eye, yet he is the one who started the fight, which cost him his left eye, and that is found on page 122. It is ironical for Minister Zinto to thank the excellencies for being attentive, yet we know they were not. The presidents condemn troublemakers, but some are themselves troublemakers by being unruly. It is ironical, that is found on page 171. And it's ironical for President Bagura to be chosen to lead in the decision making about Way Omega or Path Alpha, yet he has not read either of the documents and has sworn not to read them. Very much ironical there. Use of borrowed language or style in the novel Fathers of Nation. In the Fathers of Nation, there is a clear evidence of expressions that are not common language, they're not found in, that we cannot term them as standard use of English or standard English. And therefore, they are quote unquote referred to as borrowed expressions or borrowed terms. It is used to maintain the authenticity of the words or phrases that might lose meaning if translated. Use of Swahili words, for example. We have expressions like msitu mpya, nyani wale wale. That's on page 25. Kazi kubwa, pesa ndogo. That's on page 35. Na hivyo ndivyo ilivyo. That is found on page 36. I don't know how that Swahili sounds. It's weird. Interesting again. There is also the use of Shona language by Comrade Melusi now. Shona language is here. If you've never, maybe if you're from Shona, so definitely you're going to be expensive. In fact, that is also evident that the current issues that are affecting people, the nations that did take part in the heads of state meeting, it is evident that the Swahili expressions borrowed from Kenya and the Eastern African countries that are likely to be using that one. And also we have from Botswana there, Zimbabwe rather, we have expressions like Zimunzai. I don't know how. Okay, you have the spellings there. You can just read it the way you want. Mureza, we Zimbabwe. Page 87. Murambatsvina. That is also page 97. There is also the use of Ndebele. Kalibusiwe Iswe, Le Zimbabwe. Use of Arabic expressions like Sabakher. Page 119. The use of French language by President Bogora, merci, monsieur le president, of course, R in French is not pronounced as R. You're supposed to go like as if you're coercing and let's see if you're coughing, merci, merci, monsieur. then complete that part there. But expressions from French, borrowed expressions, borrowed language, it gives the text its authenticity rather, and its validity that indeed it did happen. There were states, there were the heads of states converges. Yeah, a convergence of the heads of state. Definitely, they will come in with their different domains and use of languages that we expect. And also, we have question, quiz passé, that is also still French. Don't know if I pronounced that one. And the French guys out there, correct me kindly on the notification. No, no notification. On the comment section down there, let me know how that was supposed to be pronounced. And hey, guys, if anybody's out there ready that we can partner in this one, will you be doing this French back to me as I do this other part to you? So let me see a good partner out there so that we can be doing this together. Together. Um, let's also discuss the use of sarcasm as a stylistic device in the novel Fathers of the Nations. Sarcasm is almost closer to irony, but not as such. This is the use of irony to cause contempt. It is like it's a contempt or a contemptuous rather, an aspect or a scenario that is contemptuous that is brought out sarcastically, either to provoke, to maybe trigger a certain kind of reaction, and which is usually meant to engage the listeners in this particular context. Now, we have expression of the first one, which qualifies to be sarcasm. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ask the guards that I bribed to arrest me on my way back. Now, there is a contemptuous aspect there that the speaker is used to this. It's something that they're used to, so therefore, there's no big deal. That is sarcasm. And also there is, yes, just as rain comes, water washes all the spots of a leopard. Professor Kimani to his daughter, Tuni. Expression of contempt. Something keeps on repeatedly happening, just as water washes off the spots of a leopard. Of course, it won't wash the spots of a leopard. It's that it's going to do nothing. I just told you why. That's another one. Old is gold. Anyway, stealing is not that uncommon, There are a lot of spouse stealers there. Wouldn't you say, newborn to Professor Kimani? Let me call the media, Pastor Chemaka said sarcastically. And that is when he was approaching newborn, and newborn to Professor Kimani rather. And that was out of contempt, rather contemptuousness. The two guys, it means that they have gotten into each other, and there is familiarity, which has bred what we call contempt. In Kiswahili, they call it mazoea. I have a confession, another one I wish to make. I want to confess that I have not read them and to declare that I will never read them. President Bagura to the members of the summit. Mr. Chairman, the resolutions once adopted, or adapted rather, do not have to be adapted again just because some sharp secretary somewhere has had echoes way omega. Very sarcastically put. Remember when the chairman was to speak at that particular meeting, the heads of state meeting. Imagery. We have subcategories that fall under imagery. Imagery is a comprehensive use of language whereby use of words, expressions, and vocabulary that be used specifically to engage or to provoke the five common senses. And that is the sense of sight, the sense of hearing, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, and the sense of touch. Now, imagery has got subcategories like symbols, metaphors, personification. We've got pathetic fallacy. We've got onomatopoeia, that is sound rather there. But when we say imagery, it's all inclusive of all those particular styles that I've listed down. But step by step, you're going to see how this one works. So we start with the symbols. Is an imagery language. What is first of all a symbol? A symbol is a figure of speech where an object is indirectly compared to an image. Two things are compared to bring out their similarities or how exactly they look like, and this helps the readers to paint a vivid picture at the back of their mind of what the writer is trying to bring across. Now, this is the direct comparison of two different things by use of like and as. As mainly used to describe something, the author has used a lot of similes in the text, such as, we have the first one there, he had a bushy mustache, which in a moment of speech wrinkled like a moth, fighting to free its wings, then fly away. This has been used to describe Comrade Melusi's mustache. He looked like a failed sumo wrestler, described Pastor Chineke Chiamaka. Cute as a button and sharp as a needle. Those are Rabiola's thoughts about Fiona's page 5. Her eyes were wide and white like a pair of moons, sluggish and groggy like a satiated rather python with a describes newborn Walomo, page 35. The youth craned his head up, sticking it like a rooster, ready to crow, describing how Nick looked at Miss Mackenzie, and that is found on page 51. Lingered on like the boom of a big drum, used to describe the voice of Mr. Tad Longway, and that is on page 75. His voice tore through the restaurant's walls to wall silence like thunder, describing the voice of the visitor, Miss Longway, page 89. Stopping or swerving out of his way like water pausing or parting to let a Moses on the wheels cross the Red Sea, which describes how Chineke Chemaka drives reckless. He's a reckless driver. That's found on page 107 there, good learners. On page 19, we have her big eyes were shining like light bulbs, referring to Rahma's eyes, her beauty. On page 144, his belly hung over like a half-empty sack. His face had wrinkled like a dry prune. This describes Professor Kimani. He was aged, or yes, was aging. And on page 161, it was as smooth as a baby's face, referring to Minister Nzito. Another figurative image of imagery aspects is metaphor. Imagery, metaphors in the novel. So we have got a metaphor, metaphors, metaphors. Metaphors is an imagery language. Now, in this case, we are comparing two things directly. When one thing takes or presumes the position of another. In other words, the object takes up the image without the use of like or as. So we get something like, my mother is a lion. That's direct. He is an hyena. This is the indirect comparison of two things which is used to create a mental picture. Tony's eyes have been compared to the wings of an imported butterfly. His voice, Tad's voice, was a lion's roar, not like. The youth was a jargon spewing buffoon. She had imagined it as an ugly monster. Okay. His voice was all syrup and honey. Abiola Fulabi's voice, a bird sip and a lion sip. Personification as an imagery language there has also been used as a stylistic device in the novel Fathers of Nations. Let's see how that one comes out clearly. To personify, this is when an inanimate object takes animate attributes. A non-living thing preassumes or takes up a living thing character traits. So this entails giving human abilities to non-human. Examples include dying old Toyota. Whichever way you want to put that, but you're getting the point home. You couldn't tell what happiness was if I fell on your lap and cried out its name. Mrs. Mackenzie met your office. Now, in other words, we've got you couldn't tell what happiness was if it fell. Happiness has begun the attribute of falling on somebody's laps and crying at the same time. Little fellow is used by Comrade Melusi to refer to the needle. You little fellow. Referring to a needle. Sunrise through the heavens wide open over Banjul. That is the breaking dawn. He consulted a wall clock. It told him 1:30. Like as if the clock would just respond or give it the attribute of, I have come for consultation. Mid-silence listener, it was sitting silently at the far end of his office. Mother Africa, it's only a few minutes after sunset, but you're so dark already. Meaning that there are no lights in Africa. Okay, well, if the developments and the rate of, let's say, for example, urbanization, which means the street lightings, they weren't really done yet, and therefore, whenever sun sets, it really gets dark quickly. Symbolism as a stylist device in the novel Fathers of the Nations. Let's look at symbolism. This is the use of symbols to represent ideas or qualities. Tuni symbolizes a place of conception. Path Alpha symbolizes the change and hope for the African country. Way Omega symbolizes the old regime which needed to be fought and changed, just like Alpha and Omega, Alpha and Omega. All right, Alpha, the beginning and the end. Alpha and the Omega. So have those expressions down there, boys and girls. The man at the summit symbolizes the fathers of the nations. Mhm. The silent listener symbolizes the fastest growing technology of 21st century. 21st, the 21st century. AGDA is used to symbolize the think tank of the peoples pushing for Path Alpha. That's found on page 41. Number 22 symbolizes the day undisputed president of Gambia fell from power. Page 46. Ideophones. These are the exact sounds produced by something. Simple. The author also emphasizes the use of ideophones such as ha. That's on page 33. Just ha. Beep. No, there's a beep beep. The sound of the machine at the store where Afolabi met his father-in-law. Page 168. Ah. Page 87. Uh-uh. Page 130. Oh la la. Page 170. Simple as that. Style with contrast in the Fathers of the Nations. Contrast is entails differences in two or more entities. It has been used to bring out the differences in people based on their physical appearances or situations in the text. A proper example is on page 101. The Nigerian president, the Nigerian president looked more majestic in those sky blue robes that he was wearing than his counterpart Gambian in his rolls of white cotton. When Way Omega offers you a bird in the bush, Path Alpha presses that bird into your hands. In other words, trying to compare and contrast those two ideological standpoints. Way Omega, Way Alpha. So Way Omega is referred to as a bird in the bush, very far from reach. And Path Alpha, the reach is trying to find you, like the bird is being pressed into your hands. Literally, you can think, you obviously have to go for Path Alpha. I wouldn't want to go for the bird that is way out there in the bush. I like to go for a bird that is being pressed onto my hands. Humor. Humor as a studies difference. Humor is usually used to lighten up the mood or to lighten up the tone of the narration. The writers, they have a way of trying to talk to your emotions, so, and your feelings. So humor is usually used to lighten up the text and make it sound a little bit light, less tensed, in a light genre, should we say. And this is a way of making the audience laugh plainly, mainly used to break the monotony or cheer up the audience. Examples: make that charge in South Africa. Mr. Lungu added, and everyone laughed. Page 147. We would still be here next year admiring our hands if we were to do so. Again, the summit hall rocked with laughter. Page 178. Dear Minister, you going to make some protestation with as much vigor when your Way Omega get win. Page 178. Oh, there's a very big thank you for watching. In fact, thank you guys for watching. This has been Tabika Shala. This has been your host, and of course, your guide through this particular work. And if there's some sentiments, inputs, some corrections, some comments that, or some other changes, or maybe different approaches and different uh, ways of doing things that you want us to do, or you want to incorporate in this particular work, feel free to leave me a comment down the comment section. And again, guys, don't forget to hit that subscription bell. And also, don't forget to share with the good friends out there. Let this work reach them, and may you be an ambassador of good news. Good news. Those are my tiny little details. Very soon we are. Oh, in fact, we are growing, guys, and very soon we're going to have a platform whereby we're going to have a group of members. Little that I'm thinking that we've come so far and we've hit 4,000 subscribers. This is a good number that we need to get in touch, get to know each other. If possible, maybe a commune, maybe a conference or a meeting whereby we can give this particular channel a different phase, a new phase whereby we have everybody needs taken care of. Remember, it is Liberty Media class, and in this particular class is not only English as a language which is going to be taught, but we're also going to have other segments very soon, very soon, partnering with good people and those who have got maybe goodwill for this particular channel, so that we bring you all the best packages ever. Stay put until we meet next time round. Cheers.